I am Hoop.
I'm Barrett Jones.
Two eccentrics from New York's disco days.
If you were on Baird's list, your social life was assured.
Two oddball art collections.
Mel Brooks, David Bowie, Art Carney, Muhammad Ali.
But the weirdest thing about this story,
And it's really solid. Nothing's going to fall off.
is how the square from the Burbs ends up with both.
I can only imagine this driving around the streets of New York.
Will this 2-for-1 strange inheritance
I've got 150, look at a 175. Once, twice. First piece, sold.
ultimately add up?
I'm Jamie Colby, and today I'm in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania on my way to meet an heir with a head-spinning story that will take us back to 1970s Manhattan, the era of punk rock, disco, and wild parties at Studio 54.
My name is Hugh Hooper. Back in 2008, my brother Hoop received a very strange inheritance. When he died 3 years later, he left one twice as strange to me.
Hugh, hi, I'm Jamie.
How you doing, Jamie? Nice to meet you.
So great to meet you. You know, I don't come out of Manhattan for just anything, but I heard your inheritance is way cool.
It is. It's crazy, but you can keep Manhattan. I'll take the country.
All right.
You want to see it? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Hugh's strange inheritance is actually two separate art collections that belong to two separate people. Here's some of the first, parked on the pathway outside his home. What is this?
Well, this is Hoop's cars. They called this the Music Mobile.
Christmas albums, Paul Simon. It still works. And this is just a fraction of the far-out fleet he inherited.
Everything you could imagine. Trucks, cars, little BMW Izettas where you had to get in between the headlights.
They do need a little bit of repair.
Well, I don't have the heart to touch it.
That's because the creator of the auto art is his dearly departed brother, Stephen Douglas Hooper.
This is me, my brother.
Stephen is born in 1946 and raised in Clifton, New Jersey. According to Big Brother Hugh, he's a cut-up from an early age.
My brother was normal until he was about 8, and then he changed.
Uh-oh, what
He
happened?
started acting like Stan Laurel and mugging and dancing around, and he always had this crazy sense of humor.
The brothers are drawn down two very different paths. Hugh joins the Army. Little Stephen idolizes pop art sensation Andy Warhol and the psychedelic painters of the 1960s. He wants to be part of that scene.
As he got into high school, he just got totally into art.
Stephen takes a few classes at a small art college. Big Brother Hugh gets married and starts a family. Where did he get the money to pursue a passion and not have to get a real job like the rest of us?
Well, Stephen had a job. He worked in a bookbinder. He operated a forklift.
But when their mother has a serious health setback, the brothers must figure out a plan.
We decided not to put her in a nursing home, so my brother gave up his job as a bookbinder, and I just paid the bills. My brother was like my hero. He took care of my mother. It's my obligation. We're blood of blood.
In the early 1980s, with their mom in stable health, Stephen rents a studio in the edgy East Village neighborhood of Manhattan. And there, in his mid-30s, he begins to shine. Hugh's now the guy with the wife and daughter in Jersey, running a trucking company. So it's not his scene, but he loves Stephen's stories.
He showed up at a party one night in Greenwich Village. He was wearing a bright blue tux with black fleur-de-lis. He looked across the room. Somebody else had the same tux. It was Tiny Tim. They became best friends.
The goofy falsetto voice, Tiny Tim, is just one of Hoop's famous, near famous, or used to be famous acquaintances. And he's driven to achieve fame too. When he gets his hands on an old BMW Isetta, he covers it in psychedelic fur. The first Hoop-mobile is born.
I am Hoop. the self-proclaimed king of art.
My brother loved to introduce us as twins, and then everybody would go, We didn't even look like we knew each other. I was military, he was hippie.
It's not easy to become a well-known artist. You have to do one more outrageous thing after another.
That means turning more and more cars into zany sculptures. Here's the convertible and the voodoo Volkswagen.
He actually had a van. He cut the front end off of another van. He bolted it on the back of his. He had two front ends. He said, I don't know if I'm coming or going. It's the time machine. He covered it in clocks and he drove all over the place.
Around this time, Hoop meets a New York preppy named Baird Jones, who also likes hanging with the glitterati, and who has his own unique artistic vision. You're about to hear about the other half of Hugh Hooper's strange inheritance.
This is a picture that James Dean drew. This is Tony Bennett.
Signed Bennett.
They're all signed.
Signed by Muhammad Ali, Adolf Hitler, Charles Manson, Buddy Hackett, Paul McCartney, and more.
That's great.
Vincent Price.
After the break.
But first, our strange inheritance quiz question. Which 70s hard rock band switched gears to cut the solid gold disco hit, I Was Made for Lovin' You? Kiss, Iron Maiden, or the Ramones? The answer when we return. So, which 70s hard rock band switched gears to cut the disco gold record, I Was Made for Lovin' You? It's A, Kiss. The song's co-writer, Paul Stanley, said he wanted to prove it was easy to make a disco hit.
So where were we? Oh, right. In the middle of a story about how Hugh Hooper came to inherit not one, but two strange art collections. One was a fleet of car sculptures created by his younger brother, Stephen, also known as Hoop, or the king of art, if you please. The second collection, as you're about to see, was curated, apparently at significant cost, by a classic New York character named Baird Jones.
Baird had a standard preppy uniform, khaki pants, baseball hat, and would send out these little invitation cards.
Author Marianne Macy met Baird in the early 80s, when he's known as the Columbia University grad student who throws the best parties in town.
He was from a social register family. He had numerous graduate degrees.
Baird starts collecting art created by pop culture celebrities, like these scribbled drawings by Miles Davis and Jimmy Stewart. Others are by stars who are also artists, like Anthony Quinn and David Bowie. Baird works for clubs and discos like the famed Studio 54, where he's a doorman and party promoter.
He was extraordinary at getting together really unlikely combinations of people, from preppy to downtown grunge.
The young nightlife impresario rubbed shoulders with hundreds of New York celebs. He leverages those connections to moonlight as a gossip column tipster.
Besides inviting me to all of his events, he used to provide gossip column items for me.
Richard Johnson is a longtime editor for the ultimate Big Apple gossip column, the New York Post's Page 6.
Why did people love him? Was it his personality or his connections, his ability to throw a good party?
I imagine that there's a lot of couples out there now with children who met at one of Baird's parties.
No one knows when and where Baird and Hoop meet, but by the early 80s, they're best buds. They love Andy Warhol and discover synergy in merging the psychedelic stars with the disco ball. Baird and Hoop join forces, promoting East Village artists at in-clubs such as Max's Kansas City, Palladium, and Webster Hall.
They were big parties. You know, I mean, they were sort of cheesy. He would say on the invites, copious hors d'oeuvres. So there'd be 10 people deep. You'd be lucky if you could get one drink before it closed the open bar.
Some events feature Baird's growing celebrity art collection. By Baird's counting, he spends over $1 million to add works by Bob Dylan, Dee Dee Ramone, Vincent Price, and Buddy Hackett. He also snatches up works by simply notorious figures: John Gotti, Adolf Hitler, Charles Manson, and John Wayne Gacy. His art shows attract even more bold-faced names.
He kept a database, and so he could mail out, 5,000 invitations at a time. If you were on Baird's list, you know you're going to run into 100 people you know. You're bound to see Hoop. He had the same crew always there.
But every great party comes to an end. And in 2007, concern is spreading among Baird's closest friends, like Marianne Macy.
The 4 or 5 a.m. lifestyle had to change. He didn't look healthy. People's lifestyles changed, and Baird was still out there doing a lot of the same stuff.
Do you want to do it afterwards? No, right now it's cool.
I think it was more like work for him later.
On February 21st, 2008, Baird Jones, life of the party circuit, is found dead in his apartment. He's 53 years old.
Do you remember when you heard he'd passed?
I was shocked. He was way too young to die, and I didn't know that he had ever had any health problems.
An autopsy reveals it was a heart attack. In his will, Baird gives all his property to his good friend, Hoop, an estate said to be worth $2 million, not including his celebrity art collection.
How surprised was he that he had gotten this inheritance?
He was pretty surprised. He didn't expect it, really.
I think it would be just like Baird to take care of his buddy, and that's what he did.
You want to see a bunch of this celebrity art downstairs? Zero Mostel. Here's a Jack Kevorkian.
The inheritance doesn't change Hoop much. He busies himself with his cars, which are written up in the New York Times. He's even interviewed by Geraldo and featured in indie films.
This is my Matchbox mobile. I was commissioned by the toy company Mattel. They gave me 500 cars. You can play with it, too.
But as fate would have it, Hoop's wild ride is coming to an end as well.
Tell me what happened.
He had a rash. He just thought it was psoriasis. And then he got this one rash that didn't disappear, and it continued to get worse.
The diagnosis? Cancer.
My artwork gives me inspiration to keep going. I get up and I look out the window and I said, I got to do a little more to that car today.
Hoop keeps up his life as an artist and New York character with help from his older brother.
I gave him all kinds of nutritional stuff. He had no side effects from the chemo at all, right until the very end.
In September 2011, Hoop dies at the age of 64.
It's a hole in your life. When you lose part of your family, nothing can fill it.
Hoop leaves everything to his big brother, Hugh.
We were opposites, but totally bonded. What was mine was his, and what was his was mine.
And now, what's Hugh's are two strange inheritances in one. And as you're about to see, a big dilemma. What to do with it all?
Here's another quiz question for you. These 3 pictures are from the Baird Jones Celebrity Art Collection. Can you guess which was painted by Leonardo DiCaprio? A, B, or C? The answer after the break. So, which of these pictures from the Baird Jones collection was painted by Leonardo DiCaprio? It's C. For the record, A was painted by Jonathan Winters and B by Dinah Shore.
In 2011, Hugh Hooper comes into his strange inheritance. 2 bizarre art collections created and curated by a couple of quintessential New York City characters. The first was his eccentric brother Hoop, who produced dozens of wacky sculptures from various automobiles. The second came from Hoop's preppy party planner pal, Baird Jones, a large collection of artworks by a vast array of famous and notorious figures. He focuses first on his brother's car sculptures. Two things are immediately clear. He has no place for them, and there's no place to sell them.
All the fun in these cars have been had because he isn't here.
So Hugh lets his brother's friends cart away any hoopmobiles they fancy.
But Hugh, aren't you a little concerned that you'll lose that connection to him?
No. No, the connection isn't in things. The connection's in your heart.
Hugh is less emotionally attached to the second weird art collection, the hundreds of celebrity paintings and drawings that he inherited through his brother from Bear Jones.
Who's that?
Okay, that's the Queen of Monaco.
Ooh,
Grace
so they're
Kelly.
royalty.
Yes.
Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah.
Harvey. That was a character. John Gotti. Bikini, nice. We know what he was thinking about.
That's one of my favorites.
Remember, Bear Jones spoke about spending $1 million to acquire all this artwork. Hugh decides to auction it all off.
This is Muhammad Ali
In the ring.
in the ring.
Hugh, you're gonna sell this?
Yes, I am, because who's going to enjoy it? Nobody's getting any chance to look at it. That's what art is for. It's for people to appreciate.
You think it's worth anything?
I would imagine it is. What, I don't know.
He's about to find out.
Let's open up at 1,500. 16, 1,700, 18.
What's your strange inheritance story? We'd love to tell it. Send me an email or go to our website, strangeinheritance.com.
Now, back to Strange Inheritance.
In June 2016, Hugh Hooper's ready to auction off what's left of his strange inheritance, a trove of celebrity artwork collected by a preppy New York party promoter named Bear Jones. Jones is said to have poured more than $1 million into the collection before he died and willed it to Hugh's brother, Hoop. Hugh chooses Robert Rogal of Rogue Gallery in Long Island City to handle the sale.
Mel Brooks, Peter Falk, Jimi Hendrix, Adolf Hitler?
Quite a weird collection, but a lot of name brand material.
It's the Stephen Hooper, a.k.a. Hoop, Celebrity Art Collection.
And off we go. Internet and phone bidders are standing by.
Opening price on this one is $100.
It starts quietly with a work entitled Self-Portrait with Butterfly by the famous French mime Marcel Marceau.
At 100. 100 and a quarter now. Got to bid 100, go 125. It'll be 125 now. At 125. Last call. Sold at 100. Mel Brooks.
This cartoon scribble by a famous funny man fares somewhat better.
Gone. $400. Peter Falk.
Detective Columbo beats that easily.
600. This is John Gotti.
Crime pays a little more.
Bikini on Mars. Sold $1,100. We continue. Horror Hospital, ink and marker drawing. Dee Ramone. We're at 13 right now. Look for 14. 14. It'll be 1,500. Sold at $1,500.
And remember that Muhammad Ali painting called Sting Like a Bee?
1,500. 1,600. 1,700.
It packs a bit more punch.
We're done. 2,800.
Alas, that's the biggest celebrity hit of the night.
Buddy Hackett. Sold $250. Rudy Giuliani. 800.
At this rate,
David Bowie. Sold at $550. Jimi Hendrix.
Bear Jones' $1 million investment in celebrity art
Sold at $300. Henry Fonda.
is looking like a big bust.
Pass it. Pass and we'll pass. Moving along.
This color pencil doodle by actor Ed Asner starts with a minimum bid of $400.
Any bids? 400. And we'll pass.
Will Matthew Broderick do any better?
Any bids at 100? 100 only.
Nope.
And we're passing. And we have now Courtyard of the Old Residency in Munich. The artist is Adolf Hitler. We'll start off at $50. And now $75. Looking for $75 on this. Last call. We're at 100. Sold at $100 and glad to have it pass me.
Out of the 300 works put up for auction, about a third of them sell. The grand total, $43K. Hugh expresses surprise, if not disappointment.
There was some things that didn't sell that really I thought would sell very easily. But I think it was a good sale. Also, it honors my brother, and that's very important to me.
The unsold items include works by James Dean, Fred Astaire, Phyllis Diller, and Kurt Vonnegut, which, come to think of it, is a pretty good start to an invite list for yet another cosmic art happening Baird and Hoop are surely planning, wherever they are.
It'll be a long time before we see anything like them. They were both really unusual people. Together, they were fantastic.
So much that's hip in one generation is totally uncool to the next. Old Uncle Hoop once drove his niece, Hugh's daughter, to school in one of his Hoopmobiles. The teen was mortified. After that, all Hugh had to say to keep her in line was, "Watch out, young lady, or Uncle Hoop will be driving you again tomorrow." I'm Jamie Colby. Thanks for watching Strange Inheritance, and remember, you can't take it with you.